My name is Maye, Edwin, and I write a little code in HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and fortunately share it on GitHub. So that's what I like doing most of the time, and I like speaking on web technologies and also on developer community leadership to uh, dev community leaders like Mike and stuff. So the picture is actually in May in 2018. I was speaking to GDG leads around the globe. I also not just speak to devs like you. I also speak to in conferences that are tech related. Yes, and this was one of my recent one. Yeah, and also I'm a community leader with the Google Developer Program, GDG. And yeah, so that's what I also do. I also host meetups like the one we are just having it that we are having right now. Yeah, awesome. So I'm happy to be here today, remotely from Kenya, and I'm going to speak about Workbox Progressive Workbox Recipe. So today we're just going to look at one amazing feature for Progressive Web Apps, and that is the offline feature. I think this is the most important thing, and I've seen a lot of devs focusing so much on this, and at the end of the day, end up just making everything offline that is so unnecessary. So I thought I should come up with something like this and just share to you some skills or some ideas and knowledge how to best use Workbox to actually do best while building offline fast web apps and stuff. So just before I continue, I have this little open source project. So basically, it's a dev site that focuses on just giving little tidbits on building progressive web apps and how to do it. And lots of open source code is available for you to add these exciting features to your progressive web app. So you could check it out later. Yeah, where you go out. So I also like to teach people how to write code most of the time. And also, yeah, this is one of my best life principles to I look forward to coding till I die, most probably. Awesome. So I was to get here. Okay, cool. So just like I was saying, most of the time I actually run some performance tests on some progressive web apps I come across with. And one of the performance tests I look towards is the caching process or the offline part, because you look at this kind of web app works so well, but then everything is offline. So you end up misusing the user's resources, whether unknowingly or unknowingly. And I don't think this one is one of the best practice in regards to web development. And yeah, so that's why as a dev, I just started to focus on building progressive web apps using Workbox. And Workbox is basically a JavaScript library for progressive web apps and modules and stuff. So it has everything packed together for you to build production-ready progressive web apps, yeah, and scale up your entire PWA development journey. So today, to insist, we are just going to look at the offline part of progressive web apps and how to cache best. And that means you're going to look at three things. So we have, when you're thinking about offline first while building with Workbox, we're looking at precaching. Then we have Workbox precaching, and then we have Workbox strategies. So for precaching, basically means you cache content ahead of the service worker being used. So that means when a user visits your site or your PW for the first time, they already can get served with the resources that are already cached during the development or deployment process and stuff. So after that, we also have what we call Workbox precaching. So that entirely works with the Workbox library itself. So that means on first load, check what is to be cached, download it, and remove duplicates. I'll be showing this using the Chrome DevTools, and you'll get to understand much better about that. So what Workbox precaching means that when a user visits your site of the first load, so remember we already precached the resources that we need for our first load. So Workbox will definitely look or load the resources from the internet and make them cached. And then if, for example, a user visits the second time and we had a little update on the resources, that is the CSS and stuff, then the Workbox precaching helps you now to check, to update the existing one that is old to the latest one, and then yeah, serve it later. And I'll be showing that, so you don't need to worry so much about that. And then we have the magic that I'm going to talk about so much today is Workbox Strategies. So Workbox Strategies helps you to entirely decide what you are going to cache, how you are going to cache, how long those resources are going to be cached, and in what priority are you going to cache these particular resources. So with that being said, I think I'll just definitely go to this site here. So on our dev site, that is the pwfi.org, we have a little doc describing these strategies before I just implement it with a Colab itself. So we have, when you go to the developer directory, we have how to implement offline strategies. So we are going to use just Twitter as a sample app to show you how you could implement these offline strategies when you think about an offline first web app and stuff. So we have 4 strategies that you can use to actually cache your resources to in your web app. And the first one is stale while revalidate. So here, I'll just show you right here. So for example, if you're thinking about Twitter, or just before that, so stale while revalidate is fairly common strategy where having the most up-to-date resource is not vital for your web app. So that means, for example, when you're looking at the profile picture of a user on Twitter, so you are not really interested in the latest profile picture. So you could use this strategy to actually allow your web app to check the internet as it checks the cache. So that if the profile picture was not cached, then it will return the latest resource from the internet. But then if it was cached, it will then serve the latest profile picture to the user. So that's what it means here. So for example, images, profile picture, and stuff. And then we have the cache first. Cache first basically means that all the resources served to the user on your web app come from the cache. So the web app will have to check first from your web server the resources if they are cached. And then if, so an example with Twitter will be media. For example, when you tweet a lot of photos and you have, just show my Twitter, for example. So, okay, cool. So you have all these media. You really don't need to actually have the latest. So these are some of the medias maybe you've posted on Twitter some time back. Most of the time when you go to Twitter, you want to check the latest. So maybe for Twitter, as an example, you could use cache first strategy to actually serve this content, which is media that a user has already posted and stuff. And yeah, and so that's how you could actually use the cache first strategy. And then another one, we have the network first. So the network first basically means that the network first and falling back to network, sorry. So it's best for requests that are updating frequently. By default, it will try to fetch the latest request from the network. If the request is successful, it pulls the response in the cache. So using Twitter as an example, we'll look at latest tweets. All right. So if we had tweets that were tweeted while you were offline, and got cached maybe, then Twitter web app or the PW will try to get that from the cache. Or, I'm sorry, just confused that. So if you're checking for the latest tweet, what the web app, the PW will do is check the network first for the latest tweets. All right. So if there's nothing or there's no latest tweet on your timeline, then it means that the web app will go back to the cache and check if we had any cached latest tweets for you to look at. And then another important and last strategy is network only. So network only is, I think, is so straightforward. That means that you only serve content from the network. So you define which resources within your service worker should be only served from the network. And an example will be settings. For example, if you want a user to change their username, so that means we have some authentication process to take place and stuff. So that means then you have to, if you're implementing offline strategy in this kind of an app, it means that you need to provide these resources and restricting it to the network only strategy when thinking about the PW working offline in regards to Twitter and stuff. Yeah, so that's basically the 4 strategies that we have with Workbox. So these Workbox offline strategies enables you to basically define or have the power to dictate to your PWA what to cache, and then what to cache first, how to cache it, and how to serve from the internet or from the cache. So I think with that, I'll just need to show you a simple application of how that works. So for you, if you built a progressive web app before, you always know that you have to register the service worker. So if you've never built a PWA before, don't worry. I would like you to just focus on focus on how I'm going to explain how to implement or how each strategy, that is the Workbox strategy, cache strategy, works. Awesome. So I'm gonna use this app. So this app has is a starter app on building progressive web apps with Workbox itself. So I am going to check this source. So let me just show you this. I'll show you. Okay. Here.
Cool.
Okay, cool. Awesome. I hope you can actually see that, right? This is my service worker, and actually the service worker is where you actually add all these magical features, all these native power features to your web app. So in here you could see some exciting URLs here, all right? But then let me just keep that for now and just explain the caching strategy first, and then I'll come and explain this one in regards to pre-cache, all right? Okay, cool. So with Workbox, you'll have an empty service worker.js file. So in it, you import the library itself. So you could actually just do this, copy this. You could just go to Workbox and just get the import URL to your service worker. So when you import this, then you have all those library and all those support features that Workbox can been ready to be used in your app. Now, I was talking about the cache strategies. So now I'll actually give out the URL to this collab, so you just follow it later. So you don't need to worry so much. Now here, this is network first strategy. And network first strategy, I think, is so straightforward. It means get the resources first from the network before check it back into the cache. And when you look at my comments here, so you cache images, for example, in an others folder. So if you're using a network first cache strategy, they should come first as this app. So actually, I forgot to point out that. So actually, when you implement these strategies to various resources in your web app, you have to make sure that all the network strategies implementation come first before any other kind of strategy so that it can work. Yeah, so that's some of the important thing or tip you should note. Now, when you look at this code here, I have an others folder here. So, and this from the comments, so cache images. So I have an others folder in the images folder. So these images that are in others, for example, if it is an event app, I have a speakers images, all right? So I could have an image folder like this one here. Let me just show it from here. Okay, that one will get shown when okay, I'll show it later. Okay, cool. So in the images folder, I have another folder called others, and it contains images, and these images are on a second page that I'll be showing here. So I don't want them to get offline before a user visits or actually visits the next page. So with that, I also want to always get the latest image possible. I was just using images as an example. This could be any JavaScript file, video, or any other kind of resource that you want a user to make offline or any other page and stuff. So when you come here, what this just means is just cache anything that is an image. So in that folder, so that is SVG, PNG, GIF, JPG, all those kind of images. And then when the user visits that second page that I want to get served images from the internet first, create a cache name called images cache and stuff. And then we have these plugins. Now these plugins now allow you to dictate how many number of resources should be in the cache. So for example, the maximum number of images I want in my images cache is 50. And how many days do I want them to stay in the cache before we have an auto update of the entire thing is 7 days. But then this one is here for by mistake, because actually we're implementing the network first strategy. You could actually implement the plugin or not implement it. It doesn't have. So I'm gonna go to the next page. Or before I go to the next page, I'll come here, application, and then we have our cache storage. All right. So I was talking about pre-cache. So pre-cache is the resources that I wanted to get offline on first load of the page. But I'll explain this one after explaining the workbox strategy. So I'm just going to go to the next page, which is the latest page. Now from here you could see some amazing cache storage items here. So you have the latest cache image here. So it means we have the image cache I was talking about. We have different cache made. We have images cache. So we have, let me just unzoom this so that I can show something in the console. I'll go back to my here. So I said, okay, let me go back application. So when you come to the application, I have an images cache. So this image cache carries images that are served from the network first. All right. And one of that image is the latest SVG, which is the one loaded right here. So this image will always be looked for from the internet before going back to the cache. So for example, if I updated this image to something else, what the web app will do is just check if we have the latest version of it in the network first, from the network first before going back to the cache. So I'm going to show you something on the console. Okay, let me check. Okay. This is my service. Okay, do I have it really? Okay, not really. Oh, I'll go back here. I want to see. Looking for, okay, let me go back here. Let me just go back. Oops. Okay, cool. Okay. Okay. Okay, cool. Awesome. So this is how you actually implement the network first strategy. Another thing that we have, another strategy is we have a latest, this folder here. We have a latest folder directory or subdirectory. So you can cache resources from a specific directory. And here I'm using this kind of strategy. So stale while revalidate. All right. So this means I'll actually Workbox will actually check the cache as it checks the internet. So if you have the latest from the internet, then bring it. And if there's nothing, then just fall back to the cache. So that is basically what it means. And then because I visited this kind of, I visited the subdirectory, you could see that we have a latest cache, meaning that this web page will be served from the latest cache. So I go back here. Where was I going to? Okay, cool. Okay, awesome. Let me check here. Latest folder. Okay, cool. So in this app, I've used stale while revalidate. So that means, for example, for the latest directory, for the user visits, what the web app will do will check both the internet and the cache. So what serves first is what gets to have its way and serve the resource that is being looked for. I've actually implemented the same thing on external CSS and JavaScript, and that, for example, in this folder here, I've used this. So what this means is that cache any external resource that is not already cached or that is not caught up in my custom service worker, or anything that I've not caught up in the pre-cache code that I've written, or to implement the offline loading stuff. So we have an asset cache. So I'm going to show you that and explain something. So when you look at this asset cache, it contains a cache resource from Firestore, Cloud Firestores. We have, I'm using Font Awesome. So this is not actually on my local project. So this one is what I'm getting from the CDN. So what it does, it will cache the resource and keep it. So if we have anything that is latest, within, for example, we have 5.20 or 5.21 release of web fonts from Google or from Font Awesome, what it will do in this service worker, let me just go back. Every time I load a page that loads a Font Awesome, the Font Awesome CDN import, I will always look at the internet and I'll always look at the cache. So if there is no latest release, then serve me back the cache to actually fall back to the cache and serve the content. So that is it with the caching resources with Workbox. Now, I'm going to go offline, and I want us to check the console, what gets printed on the console. So I'm gonna go offline. I'm going to try to reload this page. All right. So when I reload the page, you still find that the page is still working offline. All right. So on the latest directory, what we implemented, the strategy implemented was still will revalidate. So what happened here actually is the app tried to look for the resource from the network and then the resource from the cache, but then there was no internet connection. So what happened? It fell back to the cache. Another important thing, if I had implemented the cache first strategy on any of these resources, that means whether connected to internet or not, it will always fall back to cache. But then still listen to any changes to latest versions of the resource that I'm trying to actually obtain from the internet. Yeah, awesome. That is it. Now, I'll try to go back here, and I really hope I can explain the pre-cache. So for those who actually go and try out the collab that I'll be sharing, so the pre-cache, what means that you are trying to cache resources fast before even the visitor actually, or before even the page is actually loaded, or the web app is actually loaded for visited by the user. So you come and actually define what you want to get offline fast in this as shown in this code here. So for example here, what I mean here is cache everything that is JavaScript in the JS folder, cache all the CSS in the CSS folder, and cache all the SCSS in SCSS in the SCSS folder. Or you could actually do that in one line and stuff. So what that one results in is, I'm gonna zoom this. So that's what actually we are seeing here, right? So what I said should be cached even before the web app is actually loaded is my index file, all these. I also specified I want all the assets, the JavaScript and the CSS, all of them are actually cached. And that is what you definitely get when you first visit the web app. So if I'm gonna go online and finish up awesome. So okay, awesome. So if this is the first time I'm visiting the web app, this is what happened in here. Okay, cool. When we implement the pre-cache, these are the resources that are made offline fast on the first page visit of the web app. So you can actually go through the collab itself, and you'll actually be able to get to understand how that is always it's actually implemented. And yeah, have fun with it. So with that, I think I'm done. So maybe if there's any question, you may want to definitely ask.